So here's a view of the cylinder head I wasn't planning to see anytime soon, but...
Keep these down. Keep these down bad.
Well guys, we've had a bit of a curveball here. Things were going great. Welcome back to my Dream Spec B20 VTEC engine build. If you've been following along from the start, then you know it's been a journey with more than its fair share of ups and downs. But for those of you who are late to the party, let's go back to the start and get you caught up. This is my 1998 Acura Integra Type R, and without upsetting any Connie Salika fans out there, this is truly the car that speaks to my soul the most, having been a Honda kid since the 1990s and having spent countless hours building and racing golden era Hondas along the way. I've always wanted to build a big power B20 VTEC engine, and thanks to the support of HP Academy, who've sponsored this build, I set off to do exactly that. Using all the best parts based on Levine Motorsport's Super B20 recipe, the goal was to make 250 plus wheel horsepower out of this Dream Spec engine. Following HP Academy's practical engine building course, we had a fully assembled short block. That is until we noticed a small hole in the cylinder wall. We're still puzzled how we didn't notice this hole when assembling the short block, but our best guess is that it was plugged with debris, and once we installed the pistons, the rings pulled the debris out and exposed the hole. Despite jokingly fixing the hole with JB Weld, the only real solution was to source another block, tear it down, send it off to the machinist to be bored, honed, and decked, at which point we could reassemble the short block and continue following HP Academy's 10-step process to completing the engine assembly, installing it in the Type R engine bay. But because Lord VTEC wanted to keep me humble, First Start had to wait because we discovered a massive leak in the cooling system. Turns out somebody with a beard and glasses pinched the water pump O-ring seal when installing it, so we had to tear down the timing side of the engine and replace the gasket with a good one. With that problem fixed, it finally seemed like we passed all the tests and were ready for First Start. I mean, what else could possibly go wrong at this point? There's literally nothing left that could catch us out, right? Right? Everything seemed to be trending towards total victory and declaring myself the world's greatest engine builder, but after having fired up the B20 VTEC for the first time, Pete noticed a not insignificant oil leak from the back of the engine. I wasn't too worried about it initially. It was probably just a loose fitting on the Blocks Racing VTEC oil line, or maybe a loose sandwich adapter. But upon closer inspection, it became clear the problem was a lot more serious than that. As we briefly explained earlier in the engine build process, there's an oil passage on VTEC cylinder heads that need to be capped off when installing the head on a non-VTEC block. This brings you up to speed on what has been a bit of a roller coaster of an engine build, but I'm not going to let an oil leak stop me from fulfilling this decades-long dream of having big B20 VTEC power under the hood of my favorite Honda of all time. But first we need to see what the issue is with this leaky plug, so off comes the cylinder head. So here's a view of the cylinder head I wasn't planning to see anytime soon, but here we are, and here is the plug that you could see the oil leaking past from last episode. And putting this wrench in here and checking it by hand, like, I thought it was gonna be loose. It doesn't feel loose, so my best guess is maybe there's just no sealant on it. Oh, that took very little effort with the wrench. So definitely no Loctite on it and probably no sealant on it, given how easily that came loose. It's funny how you couldn't get any torque with the screwdriver style, but with the ratchet it would just pop loose instantly.
Oh
so
yeah, she's clean.
There's no thread sealant on there, so.
That is clean.
All right, well, live and learn, everybody. When you are plugging these holes on your LS VTEC or B20 VTEC setup, you gotta put sealant on there. Worth mentioning, there's a top side to this galley that also had a plug in it, this guy right here, which we also pulled out. It was also not sealed. So again, my fault for not checking it. What we're gonna do is red Loctite it. From what I saw online, guys are either using Loctite or thread sealant on these. Spoke to Eric about it. He basically said red Loctite it and send it in there. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. All right, just load it up, going back in our home. I will snug it down real good.
Yeah, I guess the question is, how tight are you gonna do this?
Well, you don't wanna go ham and strip the threads, right? For those of you wondering, we did clean the hole out thoroughly, brake cleaned it out, just to make sure we're getting nice clean thread engagement here. And
that liberal use of that red.
I have to clean that up there, obviously.
Looks like a murder scene, which it kind of feels like it was, having to pull this head off again, DP.
It was a bummer, but you know what? It only took me an hour to pull the head. Not the end of the world. If this was a BMW, Peter, and I heard you chirping me about BMWs, first of all, we would have spun the bearings on first startup, and second of all, if we were having to do this job, pulling the heads off a BMW, that's like a month's work.
Look, I'm not going to argue that the BMWs don't have their own reputation, but given this build and the amount of trouble we've had, this has been, I think it's been
This isn't Honda's fault, this is my fault.
Well, this is what happens when you chirp the BMWs too much. The gods.
Yeah, maybe.
They come and they strike you down a little bit.
There's an element of karma at work here, perhaps, or just stupidity on my part, but not a Honda problem per se. Well, there you go, guys. A process we should have shown you when installing this head originally is now taken care of. This should, red Loctite sets up in 10 minutes or so, cures in 24 hours. So now we just got to clean the head up and get ready to reinstall it. And it's time to reinstall the head in what is apparently a reoccurring theme in this build called Let's Do It Twice. And that includes buying another Cometic head gasket, as well as pulling, cleaning, and reinstalling the ARP head bolts and carefully prepping the mating surfaces of the head and block in what I'll call an abundance of justifiable caution. On the upside, we've had so much practice installing the timing belt and setting the timing on this engine, we knocked it out in no time this go around. A couple hours later and the motor's back together, so not the end of the world. And by the way, we did talk to Dave at Head Games, and he said those plugs were already in the head, which kind of makes sense because this head came through Luke at Clean Street. I have no idea what block it came off, so it was probably on an LS or a B20, and someone had already put the plugs in. And the reason he knew that is because the plugs in there were not steel, they're brass, and he only has steel plugs. Anyway, we are filling it with oil now, and since we drained out that initial startup oil, we are now gonna fill it with our break-in oil, which is Valvoline non-synthetic VR1. So they offer the VR1 both in a synthetic and non-synthetic option, and we're going non-synthetic just because a lot of engine builders feel that synthetic is too slippery for the rings to break in properly. So a conventional motor oil is preferred by most engine builders for break-in. To put coolant back in, we're going old school with this funnel on the rad technique, which is a very good and affordable way to do this. This creates a high point in the cooling system so that when you run the engine, the air all wants to go to that high point. So we're gonna fire the engine up and obviously look for oil leaks, but it'll also give an opportunity for the coolant system to burp itself. All right, here we go.
See, that's how a Honda's supposed to start, right? First crank.
First crank. And I know it sounds a little weird because there's a lot of intake noise through the throttle body and the valve butterfly creating that whistling noise.
Sounds like it's either running a little bit too rich.
It smells rich, doesn't it?
All right, now the moment of truth.
Yeah.
Have a peek underneath, have a peek around.
Yeah, I'm stressing a little bit here, but we could have let that Loctite dry a little longer, but...
That's in, dude, it's at 10 minutes.
Dude.
Is it leaking? No way. Oh my God, it's leaking again. It's leaking again. I don't know what to say, Dave. I really don't know what to say. Are the fittings bad?
Could be. I mean, Dave did say we only use steel plugs, and those are brass plugs, or we didn't let the Loctite dry long enough.
No, there's no way.
But it's still like pissing out of there. Well, I may have had a nervous breakdown for nothing. We're looking at the plug and it is dry, and you can still see the red Loctite there, totally undisturbed by oil. So the oil I was seeing on the block is actually from when we had the leak. I didn't clean the oil off the block.
You didn't clean it up? Man, I almost had a heart attack.
I did have a heart attack. I fully had a heart attack.
So what we're gonna do here is we are going to start the car back up here and see, just to confirm, that there's no leak there. So go ahead, Dave, fire it up.
Okay.
Nice and dry. It is not leaking from there, so we just... It was all old oil that you forgot to clean up, I guess.
Well,
so, man.
That is a huge relief, and the upside for you guys is that you got to see a middle-aged man have a heart attack on camera and survive. So, God, that stressed me out way more than it should have, but this has been a struggle. It really has. So excited that appears to be fixed. Just fitting up the intake here. This is the stock Type R intake tube, and as you can see, the diameter is the same as this 74 mil throttle body. However, it is made of quite a soft and I hope flexible material. So let's just try to stretch it on there. Give this engine the Magnum experience.
Why are we running a stock intake, Dave?
Well, it's a stock intake tube that then goes to that Comtech icebox set up over here. And we don't want to get into having to like fabricate a larger diameter pipe here.
Don't those smooth 3-inch pipes give you like 10 horsepower?
Well, if you look inside there, it's quite smooth. This ribbing is on the outside. So, you know, it's I guess designed to give it some structural integrity. But the inside of the pipe is perfectly smooth.
Yeah, I know, you're right. All right.
Got the date night juice out here again, PT, because we want to give this thing a chance.
Fun fact, everybody, if you're gonna use anything on rubber, and we recently learned this, you wanna use a silicone spray, not WD-40, not anything that's petroleum based, because that does erode and harden the rubber.
Yeah, doesn't it cause it to like swell up too?
Yeah,
like it does all kinds of weird
stuff. It
stuff.
can do all weird things. So.
Yeah, so let's see.
Oh boy, here we go.
If we can have any luck. You know what? I think it's gonna go. I might have to get a little screwdriver under the lip here, but it does seem like it's gonna go. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh, now it's slipping off the bottom. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy.
You're so close.
Come on, buddy.
Oh, gee, are you on?
We're on. Woo!
We should get a clamp on there right away.
Oh yeah. So here's our Comtech icebox, and it has quite a nice like OE look to it when the lid goes on, so it's quite stealth. And it puts this snorkel down in that low pressure area behind the front bumper, so it gives you a nice cold air charge. So it is one of the better intakes for power. It doesn't give you that like crazy VTEC pop that you get from like the long tube AEM ones, for example, but I think this one looks much nicer and still gives you good power.
I fought with this thing. You kind of got to go down
And then turn it.
and then turn.
You can't hook it in this way?
Try it. I don't remember. Maybe it went that way.
There we go.
Look.
We found the technique. Oh, there it goes. Foam cannon going in here. And
Look at that thing.
you can see it's got like a groove in it, so it just sits on the edge of the airbox here once you kind of get it into. Hold on. I'm getting my hands all oily because it is an oily filter.
And you also forgot, you got to put this in first.
Oh, you're right, I did.
Oh boy.
You know, if we had the
Stick
instructions.
it in that hole.
Yeah,
And then, you know, in the back hole.
Yeah,
And look at that.
yeah.
See how it all comes together. There we are.
Oh, look at that.
Wow. That is like by far the best setup for stealthness though.
It is.
Look at that.
It is very
that
slick
is
that
so,
way.
so good.
Yeah. Last thing we're going to do is swap out the stock distributor here for the Digi-Dizzy because we think we figured out why it wasn't working before. This is a coil-on plug conversion. Here are the coil packs on the Digi-Dizzy mounting plate here, and they just pop down in there. And this is the digital replacement for your distributor. And as you can see, it has this stock type of mechanism that attaches to the back of the camshaft here, and it gives, you know, converts that signal to a digital signal, which then goes to the ECU. And it works perfectly with stock ECU or some aftermarket ECUs, but with the Link, we actually had to switch a wire around, which is where, or a couple of wires around, which is where the confusion started, but we think we have that sorted out now.
There we go.
Well,
look at that.
Seems like we
got
got
a
a working
runner.
Digi-Dizzy, so that's exciting.
DP, are you nervous or what?
I am nervous. We've had a few mistakes happen that were mine, so I'm a little worried, but I mean, we fired it up enough times now. I know it's gonna run fine. But we are gonna take it for its maiden voyage just here in the parking lot to make sure nothing falls off.
Oh yeah. All right, fire this thing up here. Uh-oh. BP's down. BP's down bad. Smoking. I can see it. Smoking. Really, it's either really rich. There's a lot of black soot coming out of the tailpipe when you try to start it.
It feels super rich.
Yeah.
Maybe it's flooded at this point. I don't know.
No, I don't know, but yeah, go ahead and try to start it again. Oh yeah.
Okay, we think we know what the problem is. It's just occurred to me when we took the cams out, I backed all the adjusters off for valve lash as per the factory service manual, and I didn't reset the lash. So that would explain why it's running weird and sounding a little noisy. So let's check that. Yeah, screws are loose. So I definitely did not reset the valve lash. Is there anything else?
VP, oh my goodness.
It's just another day in my life here.
We're lucky we caught it.
Yeah.
Because that would have been disastrous if one of those screws
fell off. If the screw fell off, it would have been a bad time.
Yeah.
I mean, at least with them being loose, you've got a ton of clearance, so it's not going to do any damage to the motor until a screw comes off, which we've avoided.
So how loose were they there, Dave?
I mean, I backed them off a full turn, so I don't even know if I have a feeler gauge that big. Okay.
One, they probably loosened up quite a bit too when the engine was running.
Could be.
Which is why it died.
Yeah, and why it was so loud too.
Yeah. It's like, the screws like to unscrew themselves.
Yeah.
This is the final time, right Dave? Final time. Valve cover's going on.
Of course.
Never coming off again.
And for you guys.
Ever.
No, ever. Not ever. And for you guys wondering, I mean, sometimes you just got to create a little drama for the internet, right? Like these mistakes couldn't have really happened. We must have just made this happen to create some drama, because no one would make 3 gargantuan mistakes like this in a row, right? That's just not even mathematically possible.
This was all scripted.
It's gotta,
You're right, man. Why are you giving away all our secrets?
It doesn't feel like it could be true.
No,
really
no.
This is not real life, everybody.
Us YouTube mechanics, we're like the best of the crop.
That's it.
And these types of mistakes are made by real mechanics.
Yeah.
Not the elite YouTubers.
I am YouTube certified, so these things could not really happen.
That is right.
We just want to keep you entertained, and I hope you've enjoyed it.
I'm like 60-40 here, feeling that hopefully the engine runs properly now.
Well, here we go. At this point, my confidence was so shaken I didn't even want to drive it onto the trailer, so I pushed it out there as physical punishment for my recent transgressions. Race ramps and a winch do make loading any car onto a trailer a breeze though. In fact, I prefer this method to driving on, since this allows me to be sure the front bumper and exhaust clear on their way up, plus it allows me to position the car perfectly on the Mack tie-down tracks. This system makes ratchet strapping the car down extremely easy, and by strapping the tires to the trailer, the car's suspension is allowed to work properly, which is not the case when strapping down over axles, suspension arms, or at tow hook locations. And then there's the Tundra, which just keeps on doing truck things without skipping a beat, although you may notice my windows are down on this trip because the AC compressor recently decided that 380,000 kilometers is enough already. But man, this truck does still look great and tows great too, and of course unloading the car with our Max tie-down system is just as quick and easy as loading it up. Well, we've made it to Levine Motorsports, and Eric's been fiddling, just getting to idle properly, and now he wants to adjust the cam timing. Before we're on the dyno, he's already changing the cam timing. I know this part is stressing you out, Pete. Something about changing the cam's positions is just making your brain explode.
Well, you know, if you're off a tooth here, DP, if we were off a tooth, we're gonna bend some valves.
Well, I would be off a tooth. I mean, we haven't made any mistakes so far.
Well,
so
exactly.
possibly be off a tooth.
That's it. So
it's all going to be fine. It's all going to be fine, Peter. Just relax, take a deep breath.
That's right. You tell yourself
We're in
that.
Eric's hands now. What could go wrong? So Eric's super happy about our cam gear choice here, which is a JDM product that uses a vernier scale on there instead of just like a 1, 2, 3, 4 for adjusting cam timing. There's a lot of marks and dots and scratches on there that make it a little more difficult. Apparently more accurate, but only if you can read Japanese.
Is it more accurate, Eric, or what?
Yeah, I don't think so.
So he did specify in his Super B20 list of parts to use Skunk 2 cam gears, but we decided to be ballers here.
We should explain to people what the process is here, like what's going on here, Dave. Some people don't know. Why are we even adjusting the cam timing?
Well, because you can make power by changing, either advancing or delaying, as they say here, the timing on the intake and exhaust cam. So Eric knows from experience what these cams like, so he's trying to go to those settings. And if we had to have used the Skunk 2 cam gears, he could have just gone to those settings and we'd be done. But now we're into trying to read instructions here. So.
And there are consequences here if we get this wrong, right?
Yeah, you go too far and you could have piston to valve contact. So we don't want to go too far, that's for sure. So Eric just finished the break-in procedure there where you were obviously putting load in the motor, and coming out of it, create vacuum and all
so
of this.
what I do is I lock the dyno at a certain speed, and then I can bring the engine up to that speed and then vary the load up and down, just to seat the rings to the sleeves.
Right. And this just seems like a much more reliable way than going on
Very
the street,
controlled
right?
environment.
Yeah.
You know, you can create exactly what you want on the dyno.
Yeah, and I can look at the parameters. I'm not concentrating on driving or not crashing.
Right.
I'm concentrating on what I see.
Yeah.
Making adjustments, make sure everything's fine. Load up, down, up, down, up, down.
And
broken in a few minutes.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So you're comfortable now with the break-in and you're ready to start tuning it?
Yeah, let's make some power.
Amazing. All right, let's do it. Quick update, guys. It's making over 200 wheel with no VTEC. However, VTEC is not kicking in, which is the whole point of this engine. So we're just trying to diagnose now. Eric's doing a firmware update. We checked continuity on the wire from the solenoid to the ECU, and it seems to be good. So just in troubleshooting mode here. Well guys, we've had a bit of a curveball here. Things were going great. It made over 200 wheel horsepower with no VTEC.
No VTEC.
At like 6,500 RPM or something. So it was really trending.
7,000.
Yeah, 7,000. It was trending to make good numbers.
Yeah, typically you gain 50 horsepower from VTEC, so...
We were gonna get to that 250 number. Yep. However, we're not gonna get there today because we run into this situation where VTEC's not switching on.
VTEC will not work.
And you've tested it backward and forward 3 different ways.
Yep.
We've checked continuity on the wiring.
Yep.
We've tested the solenoid.
Yep.
It clicks on and off.
Yep.
We see it's getting power from the ECU.
Yeah, the ECU's outputting power. It just seems like there's not enough amperage to control it. I don't know why.
We're gonna wrap the episode here on a bit of a cliffhanger because we want to take our time and figure out why this is happening.
Yeah, we could band-aid it and, but instead of a band-aid, we're going to fix it properly.
Yeah, let's fix it the right way. So
Yep.
it's a Friday, so we're going to wrap it. We're going to come back on Monday and figure it out, make some big power, and go away happy. But you're going to have to wait to the next episode for that one. So sorry for the cliffhanger, sorry for the teaser, but the good news is it's running. It sounds great. Your changes in the cam timing seem to be spot on.
Yep.
Given how much power it's making without VTEC. So we'll see you next Saturday, guys. Thanks very much for watching.